Religious freedom is one of the central tenets of the United States and the Western world, but in many parts of the globe, men and women are imprisoned, beaten, or even killed simply for practicing their faith. That is why the International Religious Freedom Summit, held today and tomorrow in Washington, D.C., is raising awareness of the problems that many are facing across the globe. And joining us now to talk more about the fight for religious freedom is Lizzie Francis Brink with ADF International. Elizabeth, good to be with you. We appreciate it. I know you and your team are celebrating some great news out of Egypt regarding a father of 5 who was part of a private Christian Facebook group and was in prison. I understand he's now been released. Can you tell us more about him and that case?
With pleasure, yes. Abdulbaqi Saeed Abdo is a man from Yemen who converted to Christianity, and on account of the safety of his life, he had to flee Yemen to Egypt. So when he went to Egypt, he was supporting other Christian converts like himself online, and he was also engaging in TV evangelism. But this was enough for the authorities to want to censor him because of his religious belief. They called him into the police station, he was interrogated, and then he was led to a detention cell where he was left for 3 years. He was left there as another child was born to his wife. He had very limited access to his family and also to his lawyer, who was applying every 90 days for him to be released, because this was a case of pre-trial detention. This was not a case that he had been convicted and was sentenced, but he was awaiting a criminal trial. He was left in detention under national security legislation. Allegedly, he was a risk to the national security in Egypt just because he was a Christian and he was expressing his beliefs. But we are super grateful for the Egyptian authorities that they released him after 3 years. And he is now in a place of safety. But of course, a lot has changed in those 3 years, but we're still rejoicing that he is now released.
Yeah, and sadly, I know this is not the only case that ADF International has worked on when it comes to people that are being persecuted simply for their faith. Talk to us more about that, and also maybe some of the countries that are of particular concern when it comes to religious freedom.
Yes, we're a team of lawyers at ADF International, and we work with allied lawyers on the ground in numerous countries. Across North Africa and the Middle East, there are many cases where Christians are imprisoned on account of their faith, whether they have converted to Christianity, whether they are engaging in evangelism, whether they are speaking in other forums about their faith. They face persecution. Across Africa as well, we work with lawyers in Nigeria. We have many cases in Nigeria where we're supporting Christians who are especially facing very difficult times for standing up for what they believe. Also in Asia, where Christians have converted and are speaking about their faith. There are numerous examples where we're working with local lawyers to ensure that everyone has a credible legal defense.
Yeah, and religious freedom is, of course, the focus of the International Religious Freedom Summit that we mentioned is taking place today and tomorrow right here in Washington, D.C. And I understand that you'll be taking part in a panel discussion. Tell us what you'll be discussing.
We're going to be looking at this in this panel discussion at the Religious Freedom Summit on the successes of the movement. The religious freedom movement has grown substantially over the last few years, and here in DC there are senior policymakers, politicians, NGOs from all around the world who are committed to religious freedom. So we're going to be looking at what does success look like, because we can talk about religious freedom in these forums, but ultimately religious freedom is about advocating for the individual and their rights to be able to live out their faith and their belief in the privacy of their own mind, out in public, within their family units. And so we're thinking about the individual and what we can do for him and her across the world. And that's the focus of the panel that I'll be speaking on tomorrow.
Well, Lizzie, thank you so much for coming on and to speaking with us about all this. We appreciate it. God bless.
Thank you.